I'm a serious actor. I don't do comedy. I don't do series anymore. I had a bad experience with it. The director was terrible, couldn't get him fired. And it lasted 4 performances.
You think you know The Odd Couple as the classic sitcom about a messy sports writer and his neat freak roommate. But the real mismatch was happening behind the cameras between Jack Klugman and Tony Randall. Two actors whose professional tensions and clashing methods created the very chemistry that made their friendship believable. Behind the poker games and the laughs was producer Gary Marshall fighting network censors who thought divorce was too controversial for family television, while two theatrical actors brought unprecedented dramatic depth to situation comedy. What you're about to discover will surprise you. A method actor and a classical performer who argued constantly yet created television magic, a show that normalized divorce in the 1970s America, and a producer whose formula for mixing heart with humor would define an entire era of sitcoms. The apartment was a set, but the creative battles were devastatingly real. Gary Marshall, producer, creator. Gary Marshall's journey from The Lucy Show writer to creating The Odd Couple represented his evolution into television's most influential sitcom architect. His challenge was expanding Neil Simon's tightly constructed play into a sustainable series format that could generate 100-plus episodes while maintaining the character dynamics and emotional truth that made the original work. Marshall's genius lay in understanding that The Odd Couple's premise of divorced men living together wasn't just comedy gold. It was culturally revolutionary for 1970 television. Divorce was still stigmatized, rarely depicted sympathetically, and network executives feared audiences would reject a show built around marital failure. Marshall had to convince ABC that divorce could be funny without being mean-spirited. The battles with network censors consumed enormous creative energy. Standards and practices departments questioned everything from sexual innuendo to depicting single men dating multiple women, to suggesting that divorce could result from incompatibility rather than moral failure. Marshall fought to maintain adult sensibility while satisfying network demands for family-friendly content, appropriate for primetime broadcast. His formula combined sharp dialogue with genuine emotional vulnerability, allowing characters to be funny while remaining recognizably human. This approach, comedy rooted in character psychology rather than artificial situation contrivance, influenced everything Marshall produced afterward, from Happy Days to Laverne and Shirley, establishing him as the architect of 1970s sitcom success. Jack Klugman, Oscar Madison. Jack Klugman brought method acting intensity to situation comedy, an approach that seemed incompatible with multi-camera sitcom format, but created Oscar Madison's remarkable depth and authenticity. Klugman wasn't just playing a slob, he was embodying a man using deliberate chaos as defense mechanism against the pain of divorce and life's disappointments. His theatrical background made television's technical constraints frustrating. Klugman was accustomed to building performances through rehearsal evolution and improvisation, but sitcom production schedules allowed minimal character exploration. He chafed against the rigid blocking required for multi-camera filming and the need to deliver identical performances across multiple takes for editing purposes. The science of playing Oscar's messiness required surprising discipline and consistency. Klugman had to remember exactly where each piece of clutter was placed, maintain specific degrees of dishevelment in his appearance, and make slovenliness appear effortless rather than performed. This physical comedy demanded precision that contradicted Oscar's character while defining Klugman's performance. His professional tension with Tony Randall stemmed partly from fundamentally different acting philosophies. Klugman's method approach required accessing genuine emotion and responding authentically to scene circumstances, while Randall's technical precision treated acting as controlled craft. These incompatible methods created friction that paradoxically enhanced their on-screen relationship's authenticity, making Felix and Oscar's constant bickering feel genuinely rooted in incompatible worldviews. Tony Randall, Felix Unger. Tony Randall's portrayal of Felix Unger represented life imitating art to an almost eerie degree. Randall was genuinely fastidious, cultured, and somewhat neurotic, making Felix less a character he created than an exaggerated version of his actual personality. This authenticity made Felix's compulsions hilarious rather than merely irritating, as audiences sensed real psychology beneath the comedy. His classical theatrical training emphasized technical precision, vocal control, and repeatable performance that suited multi-camera sitcom demands perfectly. Randall could deliver identical line readings across multiple takes, maintain consistent physical positioning for editing, and modulate his performance precisely to camera and audience needs. This professional discipline made him ideal for television's technical requirements. The neat freak reality extended beyond performance into Randall's actual life and on-set behavior. He maintained meticulous organization of his dressing room, arrived prepared with lines memorized perfectly, and approached each episode with almost obsessive attention to detail. Co-stars joke that Tony Randall essentially played himself with Felix's neuroses amplified for comic effect. Chemistry with Klugman was genuine despite their different approaches. They genuinely liked and respected each other while finding each other's methods frustrating. This authentic affection mixed with professional exasperation created the exact dynamic Felix and Oscar needed, making their love-hate friendship believable because it reflected the actors' real relationship underneath the scripted conflicts. The Poker Game Regulars. The weekly poker game became the odd couple's signature recurring setting, providing comedy through male camaraderie and serving as Greek chorus commenting on Felix and Oscar's latest crisis. The poker regulars weren't mere background but essential ensemble members whose distinct personalities created rich comic texture. Al Molinaro's Murray the Cop represented working-class practicality and became the breakout supporting character. His affable presence and comic timing eventually led Gary Marshall to cast him as Al Del Vecchio on Happy Days, demonstrating how the odd couple served as training ground and showcase for Marshall's stock company of reliable character actors. Ryan McDonald's Roy, the taciturn accountant, provided comedy through minimal dialogue and deadpan reactions. His character barely spoke, yet remained memorable through perfectly timed silence and expressions that suggested depths of judgment about Felix and Oscar's absurd situations. McDonald's understated performance demonstrated that sitcom success didn't require constant wisecracks. Larry Gelman's Vinny and Gary Wahlberg's Speed completed the poker quartet with contrasting energy. Vinny's bachelor enthusiasm versus Speed's sarcastic cynicism. Together, the four regulars represented different masculine archetypes responding to Felix and Oscar's unconventional living arrangement, their acceptance normalizing the show's premise of divorced men supporting each other. The Pigeon Sisters and female roles Monica Evans and Carol Shelley reprised their Broadway roles as Gwendolyn and Cecily Pigeon, the giggling British sisters who lived upstairs and represented Felix and Oscar's most frequent romantic interests. Their appearances provided female perspective in an overwhelmingly male-dominated show while highlighting the series' limitations regarding women's representation. The show's male perspective reflected 1970s sitcom conventions and Neil Simon's original focus on masculine friendship dynamics. Female characters existed primarily as romantic complications, ex-wives, or dates rather than fully developed individuals with their own narrative arcs, independent of Felix and Oscar's needs. This limitation felt increasingly dated as 1970s feminism challenged traditional gender representations. Divorce-era dating depicted through the show's lens showed single middle-aged men awkwardly navigating changed sexual mores and women's expectations. These storylines captured genuine social transformation as divorced people became increasingly common, and dating after marriage dissolution lost its stigma, though the show maintained relatively conservative attitudes about sexuality and relationships. Janice Hansen's Gloria, Oscar's ex-wife, appeared occasionally as a reminder of his failed marriage and continuing emotional attachment. Her character provided pathos beneath Oscar's cavalier attitude about divorce, suggesting genuine loss and regret that Oscar's slobbish behavior attempted to mask from himself and others. Neil Simon's involvement. Neil Simon's play and subsequent film created the template that Gary Marshall expanded into television series. But Simon's ongoing involvement remained limited compared to his control over the original theatrical and cinematic versions. The transition from two-hour narrative to episodic television required substantial creative expansion beyond Simon's original conception. Creative control shifted primarily to Marshall and his writing staff, who had to generate dozens of stories beyond the initial premise Simon had explored. Simon received creator credit and royalties, but didn't write television episodes or provide regular story input, trusting Marshall's proven sitcom expertise to maintain the characters' essential dynamics while adapting them for weekly television demands. The divorce theme that Simon introduced represented groundbreaking subject matter for early 1970s mainstream entertainment, making marital failure the foundation for comedy rather than tragedy, challenged prevailing attitudes about marriage's permanence and divorce's shameful stigma. Simon's sympathetic portrayal of divorced men helped normalize divorce culturally by depicting it as life circumstance rather than moral failure. Character evolution over 5 television seasons deepened Felix and Oscar beyond Simon's original archetypes through accumulated experiences and relationships that theatrical or film format couldn't accommodate. The series format allowed exploring their friendships' nuances, their individual growth, and their struggles with loneliness and purpose in ways the play's compression prevented. Production behind the scenes? The apartment set became one of television's most recognizable locations through 5 seasons, with Oscar's cluttered mess contrasting Felix's desperate attempts at order-creating visual comedy that required meticulous consistency and planning across multiple episodes filmed weeks apart. Multi-camera innovation refined during The Odd Couple's production improved the 3-camera sitcom technique that had defined television comedy since I Love Lucy. The show's directors and cinematographers developed sophisticated approaches to blocking, coverage, and editing that enhanced visual storytelling beyond the static setups typical of earlier multi-camera productions. Live audience filming provided energy and immediate feedback that shaped performances and pacing. Actors could feel which jokes landed strongest and adjust timing accordingly, while genuine laughter reinforced the comedy and created atmospheric warmth that canned laughter couldn't replicate. However, audience presence also created pressure and constrained filming schedules to maintain crowd energy across lengthy taping sessions. The writer's room faced constant challenges, generating 24 episodes annually that maintained character consistency while avoiding repetition. The premise's simplicity, 2 incompatible roommates arguing, risked becoming monotonous without creative variation and emotional development that gave episodes weight beyond simple situation comedy. Writers balanced episodic stories with character growth that rewarded regular viewers. Legacy and cultural impact. The Odd Couple's 5-season run from 1970 to 1975 produced 114 episodes that established the show as one of television's most influential sitcoms, demonstrating that character-driven comedy could sustain long-term success without relying on traditional family structures or romantic relationships as primary engine. Syndication success introduced Felix and Oscar to new generations who discovered the show through endless reruns on local stations and cable networks. The timeless quality of character-based comedy meant that episodes remained funny decades after production, unlike topical comedy that dated quickly or relied on contemporary cultural references that lost meaning. Emmy recognition validated The Odd Couple's quality with multiple nominations and wins across acting, writing, and directing categories. Both Klugman and Randall received Emmy Awards for their performances, confirming that sitcom acting deserved respect as legitimate dramatic craft rather than dismissal as merely commercial entertainment. The show's influence on subsequent sitcoms was profound, inspiring character-driven comedies that prioritized relationships and personality conflicts over situation contrivance. Shows from Will and Grace to The Big Bang Theory owe creative debt to The Odd Couple's demonstration that compelling characters could generate unlimited stories from their essential incompatibility. The Odd Couple proved that the greatest chemistry comes from creative tension. Marshall, Klugman, and Randall didn't just make a sitcom about divorced roommates. They revolutionized television by showing that failure, neurosis, and messiness could be the foundation for comedy that touched hearts while making America laugh. Subscribe to discover more incredible stories behind television's most influential and groundbreaking series.